How are you both doing today?
Great. How are
Good,
you?
thank you, babe.
Good, good. It's so nice to be able to speak with you. I've watched you on shows like The Leftovers and The Plot Against America, and it's nice to be able to see you in these roles, which I think delicious might be a good word for them. I think there's a lot of meat to them. I might call them cutthroat. What did you connect to most about them?
Oh, they're cutthroat.
Yes.
Anybody
Yes.
who knows me knows that's exactly what I'm like. Um, not
It's like
really,
that
but
thing from Conan, what is best in life to just crush your enemies and see them driven before you, hear the
that's
lamentations of
how,
their
when I
women.
think of Morgan, I think
Yeah.
of Conan. I actually really loved their marriage. That was one of the main things that attracted me to the relation. The relationship was central, and they couldn't be who they are without their partner. And it was a really surprisingly respectful marriage, and the fact that George supports Bertha's ambitions surprised me as a something I hadn't seen portrayed very often in that time. And so that was really interesting. I also love that she's really single-minded and that blinds her to what's right in front of her sometimes. I think that's a really relatable flaw, and I love a flaw.
Yeah. Yeah. I also love about George, that I think in this era, it's hard to make an uncomplicated portrait of a ruthless capitalist. And what I love about George is that, I think he's a relatable character in a lot of ways. I mean, he is, I mean, to second what Carrie said, like their marriage is, I think, a sort of wonderful place for both of them. But he's not without his, I think that what was important for me is that actually you see over the course of the season that there are consequences to how cutthroat they are and how ruthless they are, and they don't bear them most of the time. I mean, those consequences play out in other people's lives, and I think that's I think that's there's a real element of truth there, as much as this is sort of an escapist pleasure of a piece in some ways.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And were you familiar with Julian Fellowes' previous work, like Downton Abbey?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. He's a world builder. He
That's right.
builds
Yeah.
really replete worlds, and as Morgan pointed out earlier today, every character has a set of circumstances that have been fleshed out, and you sort of never know in an episode whose arc you're going to follow. And that the idea of this very small person who's at the mercy of all these dynamics, I think, is something he does very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And it is such a terrific ensemble that you're part of. And I'm curious if there's anyone that you were especially excited or intimidated to work with.
Oh, I knew Christine's work, but I hadn't met her before. I'd met Cynthia. And so she has such a natural elegance and composure, and she's imperious in her work. But as a person, I was just shocked and struck by just how warm and generous and down to earth she is, because she's able to present the other things so effortlessly. It really surprised me, delighted me. She's a wonderful person.
Yeah, I mean, the cast, it's an embarrassment of riches in so many ways. And I feel, as someone who also, who comes from the theater, to get to work with any of these people is kind of an incredible joy. But definitely when Nathan Lane is on set, he is so much funnier than you, than any of us will ever be, just in like his most casual sort of tossed off remark, that it does kind of make you just feel like, okay, yeah, there is a reason why he's Nathan Lane. I don't know. It's like it's talent. Is a real. It's palpable sometimes.
Of course, and I like asking this question often, but especially with such a big cast like this, is there anyone who you really would have loved to work with, but Bertha and George just didn't interact with them in the storyline in any way?
I think it's hilarious that Michael Cerveris works in my house, and I saw him one day.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, he works in my house? I had no idea. But more to the point, there are so many musical theater actors in the show, which means I'll never work with them on stage because they're so much more talented than I am. But I was particularly excited that Danae Benton is in the show as just an extraordinary young actor, certainly a theater person. And I love that we're exploring that upper class society in Brooklyn, the sort of African-American upper class, which you just don't see depicted in this time period. So that's really exciting to me. And I love her storyline. I love that she's this smart, ambitious person, and the world is not built for her. I wish I could say things have changed mightily, but we all know they haven't. And so I just love following her story. And Bertha and Peggy, I don't anticipate will have much to do together, but I wish they would. Though Bertha would respect her, I don't know if she'd see her just because of the time she's a product of her time.
Yeah, I just wish it's Cynthia and Christine for me. I mean, I just think they're both so brilliant, and yeah, I wish we just never get to do anything together. So yeah.
I was going to say that I asked the same question to Danae and Louisa, and Danae said the same thing. She said, I don't know why I would ever go into the Russell house, but it would be really great to get to work with Carrie and Morgan.
Yeah.
So that's funny. Do you think this is the kind of show where you could do season after season?
Sure.
Absolutely.
If somebody wants to give us a job for that long, we're actors. We'll say yes. But also the time period is one of such dynamic change that I think the opportunities for where the story goes are really limitless. Mm-hmm. And the ability that Julian shows have to refocus on characters that are interesting and pursue storylines, I think that the sky is the limit. And so for us, I mean, gosh, it would be really exciting to get to continue. Not to mention having health insurance and a bunch of Broadway actors that have jobs in the time of COVID.
Yeah. Right. No, I think there's, this was the sort of not quite the birth, but this moment of the emergence of a sort of American labor movement that had any real power, and the battle between guys like George Russell and that labor movement was literal. I mean, it was violent. It was calling in people with guns to kill people to shoot down strikers and stuff like that. I think it's like an incredibly fascinating era in American history, and these people are right in the center of it. So yeah, there's plenty of room for more story.
Well, that's great. I look forward to everyone getting to see this. The Gilded Age airs on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. on HBO starting January 24th. Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure to meet both of you, and I hope to speak with you again in the future.
Us too. Thank you.